maybe we should talk a little bit about astrology.
Sure thing. What I am actually curious about your opinions is because I've mixed feelings about it. I've heard a lot of different things. I'm quite skeptical in nature and like like to look at spirituality from a very scientific side, and especially with like the commercialization of like tarot cards and things like that. I do have that skeptical hat on for a lot of it. So I'm curious to see what your opinions are.
Yeah, so I'm kind of similar. So I like to take a combination of spiritual thinking and then also logical, critical, data based, reality thinking, and see what they have in common. So, but astrology is an interesting one because in a way, there's no kind of standardized test for it. You can't simulate it in a lab and get results in the same way that you could about, for example, a supplement or an exercise regime. Like it requires a little bit of subjective thinking and opinion, in my opinion. But that being said, I think the concepts behind it kind of make sense. So if you consider, for example, the moon and its magnetic effect on the vast amount of water on Earth. Supposedly, it either completely controls or it influences a little bit the tides of the oceans on Earth, which is a huge thing. Like, that's no trivial thing. To manipulate and be able to move that amount of water requires a huge amount of energy, which is being transferred either magnetically or otherwise from the moon to the Earth. So it's very obvious that planets, obviously, right, in the solar system, planets have an effect on each other and on the things on the planet. For example, like gravity, magnetic influences, and electromagnetic influences, and with regards to things like the solar radiation, sunspot activity, that kind of stuff. So the foundation is kind of already there, in my opinion, from a scientific point of view. We know that magnetic, electromagnetic radiation, and light have a huge impact on things. Just to reduce it to its most basic elements. So then, when you then also consider that we are electromagnetic beings, we transmit and receive electrical signals, and we're made of something like 90% water, which is a conductor of electricity and responds to the moon and various different astrological influences. That's why, for me, it kind of makes sense that there's something going on. There must be some kind of effect based on astrological movements, and I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like, it makes a lot of sense to me based on knowing those things. And then from a spiritual perspective, I think, in my opinion, it's more like a default kind of programming that a person has, that if you don't become aware of it or change it, that will become like your kind of default pattern of behavior. And many spiritual traditions have this, and they call it the archetypal system, or prenatal patterns, ancestral roots, and ancestral destiny. They all kind of mean similar things. So to say, like, a person when they're born has this kind of path that they will naturally go through, whether it's a type of personality, the type of person they'll be, the things they'll do, what their triggers will be, their wounds, or these different things. I think many of them are predestined to an extent, but I think it's more like a default thing where you can change it. But if you're not aware of it, and if you do nothing and just kind of let life push you around where it wants to push you around, that's not destiny, but that's the most likely path that you will go down. And yeah, so, and I think if you read a lot of astrological kind of predictions and summaries, I don't know if you've ever done like an astrology chart or a natal chart or anything like that.
I've done like TikTok equivalents, never like actual like been to someone kind of thing. It's interesting what you say, especially because I've seen a lot of astrology like with ancient civilizations, we call it, like, in the past, like it very popular in the past, and I feel like even a lot of religion was inspired from it as well. But yeah, it is really interesting about what you say about the moon. I never really thought about it like that, because obviously there is so much going on with our bodies in the universe that we can't even visualize or comprehend, that there seems to be almost this underlying like mechanism behind it, like, progressing us along, because there's a direction of evolution. There seems to be almost a purpose and a direction that we're heading in.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like there's a grand design behind things. And another thing I found very interesting, which I don't want to say it proves that astrology is real, because again, I don't really have a strong opinion about that. I just kind of think there's something going on, and I'm curious to find out what. But if you look at the ancient structures, like, for example, the pyramids, we talked about this before, the pyramids, the different mega structures around the world, the people that built them obviously were far more advanced than we give them credit for. Like, for example, the pyramids, they can't even build those today. But the measurements between the different pieces of the pyramid and the different buildings, the alignments with certain constellations, they knew things that we are only just discovering now about astrological cycles, orbits, precession of the equinoxes, and all of this astrological stuff that's really complex that we barely know it now, and we're just now discovering with our modern science the things that they knew thousands and thousands of years ago and built into their buildings, literally. So that makes me think, as a society, let's not get too confident that we can rule things like that out, because if they were right about that thousands of years ago, and we also then know that these civilizations put huge emphasis on astrology and numerology and symbolism and all of these different things that we dismiss now, some of us dismiss as kind of crazy, maybe new agey, might be true, might not be true. So that's a perspective I would take, is that if ancient civilizations that were far more advanced than, some of them even more advanced than we are now in certain regards, if they placed that much importance on it and they built it into their buildings and structures and calendars and everything, there must be something there. There must be something behind it. So
100%. I mean, your evidence of the pyramids, it seems so impossible that they could have been built by some past civilization. It almost seems that there must be something. But the issue is, we don't know what something is, do we? Like, could be aliens. It could be an advanced evolution of humans. It could be, even like some aliens playing a prank on us, and it's not actually the truth. Like, just because we don't know for 100% sure. But yeah, honestly, like, because they've got the pyramids at the. I believe the coordinates is the exact speed of light. It's like a few decimal places, which is utterly crazy to have it that exact. So it does seem impossible to what that could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to go on too much about the pyramids, because maybe people will get bored. But it's, in my opinion, one of the most fascinating buildings on Earth, if not the most fascinating. I don't know if you've read a book called the Great Pyramid Decoded. Have you read that book?
I've not, no.
That's fine. Not many people have. It's actually it's very complicated. I don't understand all of it, but the bits I do understand. Basically, what this guy did, he spent his whole life researching the measurements of the Great Pyramid. So he measured everything, like the distance between the different chambers, what material they were made of, the angles that they were, built at, what they were pointing towards, everything. And he came up with this code that analyzed these different measurements and interpreted it and kind of turned it into a language. And what he found is that within the Great Pyramid measurements, there is a whole language that describes unimaginable different things. Like it predicts different things that have happened in history. It predicts things that haven't even happened yet. It accurately shows and annotates different things about the world and how things we're just discovering now about modern science. That, to me, could not have been built by a human, or at least not a human on his own. That shows to me some kind of divine influence.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Do you know how he's able to transfer like these angles and data was found into like how it predicts like past civilizations?
So there's a whole chapter actually. I can't recite it off the top of my head because it's this guy's life's work, and he's incredibly intelligent with this. But the first chapter of the book, for anyone who wants to go and read The Great Pyramid Decoded, he explains before he starts. He tells like, here is how I came to these conclusions about this measurement means this one means this, and so on.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's The Great Pyramids Decoded.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But yeah, in terms of, because I know there's people listening who might think astrology, for example, is nonsense. Completely understand. I understand that. I don't have like I said, a strong opinion about it. So what I personally do is I have a folder on my computer where I've done most of the tests you can imagine online. So like I've done astrology tests, numerology readings, tests, birth charts, moon readings, all of the different things you can imagine in the spiritual world. And I've just kind of put them all into a folder to see, do they have any similarities? Like, what is there in common with a numerology reading versus an astrology reading versus a tarot reading? Just to see, are there any similarities? And in many cases there are, but any one specific reading I found isn't super accurate, or it will have things that are not, they don't quite match. So I think, in my opinion, the best way of going about it is to take as many perspectives as you can, and then just take a step back and think, is there a pattern here, basically?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, what I like with astrology is because unlike religion where people get meaning from it and it can help them. Astrology doesn't come with that dogmatic package of like fundamentalism that you have to follow. So I feel like if you believe in astrology like to absolute T, but it helps you, like absolute no issue with that. Even if it is potential pseudoscience, like if it helps you, applies meaning into your life, like that's an amazing thing and a much better alternative to something that religion says it offers, like gives you the meaning, but traps you into that mindset. And I see like tarot card readings and stuff, and sometimes it can feel like really personal and like it's just hit the spot with its prediction. And if you go in with that mindset, like it can really then help you, like with the things that you're struggling with. I feel like, so I feel like it is definitely a better alternative to religion, personally.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are downsides with organized religion and dogmatic thinking. Whenever you have an ideology that imposes itself on others and says you have to think this way and there's no alternative, there's no possibility of anything else being correct. That, in my opinion, is quite dangerous. I mean, that's where you get various forms of extremism and religious wars, holy wars. I mean, this has happened throughout history. So yeah, absolutely. I think the best way is to just take a step back a bit. Be open-minded. Even if you feel like something is true, just be a bit open-minded. It might not be that way. It might be slightly different, or the truth might be somewhere in the middle, combination of different beliefs and systems and ideas.
100%. I mean, I think that's what psychedelics have taught me as well. Like, when I first went to having that psychedelic experience, my whole world was completely destroyed. Everything that I thought was true was just completely blown up, and because I feel like it's a metaphor for a lot of people have especially in the science community, to be fair, like a materialistic paradigm where they believe everything is material. But I feel like as soon as you enter that psychedelic experience, the whole spiritual realm, the idealistic kind of realm, is opened up to you, and you realise that everything is not all necessarily matter, and that it's mutable and quantum based, and that you can literally change your reality.
Yeah,